exactly why I said, bitch, why you ain't call me?
And maybe I didn't call you because I didn't want to be in.
The tension in the room was high, and Rasheeda finally expressed what had been hurting her. There were two ladies at the center of it, and it wasn't just a little fight. It was the kind of eruption that only happens when years of suppressed rage emerge. We're delving deeply into the private dispute that recently surfaced in the public eye today, dissecting every feeling, look, and silent word. Though they had always been portrayed as being devoted and persistent, something had been seething beneath the surface, and when the cameras began to film, they didn't hold back. The reality between them, Rasheeda felt deceived, but why? Was it Yandy's intention to isolate themselves? Are 10 years of friendship coming to an end? We'll watch the scenes they hoped fans wouldn't notice, but we'll watch every word and clip because sometimes silence is more powerful than words, and sometimes silence is more powerful than words. Like someone trying to keep a simmering pot from boiling over, Yandy is sitting there with a strained tranquility, her voice too mild, and there are no dazzling lights or dramatic opening music.
I feel like, we needed a moment to talk without every...
A dangerous situation is about to occur when a member of the Love and Hip Hop cast requests that the cameras cease recording. Given that Yandy even made that request, it's obvious that this isn't a nice exchange, but rather the beginning of a heated argument. But why now? Rasheeda's tone is charged at this particular time. It is restrained and aloof rather than overtly hostile. Her first question, what's going on, is significant. On? Her inquiry is an indication that something is wrong rather than a display of curiosity. Because they don't lean forward or sit back, their passionate body language makes everything clear. Is not an amicable catch-up, but rather a conflict. Yandy isn't here for small conversation, as seen by the emotional gut blow that follows. She gets hurt when people lose it or retaliate. Then Yandy makes a nuanced remark covered in genuineness. When Rasheeda notices that Erica Banks isn't truly present, she suddenly joins the conversation. Rather than a major betrayal, a third party sowing seeds amongst friends is the most prevalent method that love and hip-hop feuds begin. Yandy brings her up casually, and Rasheeda's response isn't a defense but rather displeasure, but it's clearly prearranged. A single individual says, "I didn't know." In actuality, they're saying, "Don't blame me for this." According to what I overheard, Yandy planted the seed while evading accountability by consciously classifying anything as a rumor after it was first raised, is known as classic sidestepping. In a society where allegiances shift every week, no, one wants to be found out. Rasheeda is able to penetrate it. When no one is looking, Rasheeda's viewpoint is clear. Entertaining Erica is a betrayal of our beliefs. Apologies, however, are insufficient to restore trust once it has been damaged, particularly when the injury is personal. Rasheeda's countenance conveys her agony, despite her obvious holding back. Not only is there a conflict, but their unwritten code has been broken. That was never us. Close. If a friend has ever made fun of your relationship, you know how painful it is, and witnessing it on national TV is a public humiliation that goes beyond simple teasing. There is a breaking point, but it is not the end of it. In the scene that follows, we will see Rasheeda's silence turn to fire, and someone go with a sense of sorrow and a friendship that may never entirely heal the emotional betrayal that caused the silence. In the seconds after Yandy's cutting line, something in Rasheeda cracked, even if we weren't the closest friends. There was a gentle sound of trust being undermined, not a shout or a physical altercation. These two ladies had to weather years of marriage crisis, internet criticism, and reality TV cast disputes, but it wasn't about Kirk or Erica. Rather, it was about two women who believed they had each other's backs, and now learned they might not. Rasheeda is not moving. She has a deep confusion in her eyes instead of anger, the silence that comes from wrath focused on oneself. How could someone with whom she had shared so much feel so distant all of a sudden? It was hardly a dramatic betrayal, but it was unavoidable. Everything feels weird now, and Yandy's words are more hurtful than she anticipated. Yandy had always been a devoted friend who understood the pressures of being in the spotlight and never appeared to turn against her. I didn't claim that we were best friends. Rasheeda tries not to get upset, but the pain is still there if they were never really in sync. Rasheeda feels surrounded and is unable to hear Yandy's attempts to elucidate. Yandy gets defensive and acts as if she's having her every action closely monitored. Rasheeda. I said you were mine, Yandy continues, her voice dropping off. Friend. But the words don't have the same effect as they used to, as though their relationship's basis has shifted. Indeed, Rasheeda, who has stood by Yandy through thick and thin, doubts the authenticity of their bond. What prevented Yandy from contacting her when she was struggling? What caused Yandy to finally acknowledge her pain after a confrontation with Erica Banks? Their quiet reveals Rasheeda's inner barriers and speaks louder than words. Rising Brick. Brick and Yandy value each other. Their attempts to reconcile feel insufficient because they were made too late. In their world, where relationships shift like sand and buddies can become adversaries, trust is fragile. Rasheeda is greatly irritated by the realization that their relationship might not have been as strong as she had assumed. Perhaps Yandy wasn't as interested in her as she was in Yandy. It remains bitter, and for the first time, Rasheeda challenges everything, and Yandy grapples with the need to defend herself or suffer the repercussions. Rasheeda finally let out what had been weighing on her heart, and the air was tense at that moment. There were no false smiles or pretenses, only genuine, unfiltered emotions spilling out. This was no trivial quarrel, but the kind of eruption that only happens when years of suppressed animosity blow up in your face. Two of them were female. Something had been seething beneath the surface, and when the camera started rolling, Yandy and Rasheeda didn't hold back. They had always been resilient and devoted. We're going to examine every feeling, look, and hidden truth between them as we dig deep into the private dispute that recently surfaced in the public glare. Why was Rasheeda feeling so duped? Was Yandy consciously putting distance between them? Is this truly the last chapter in a bond that endures for 10 years, and you will witness the moments they hoped fans would not watch? However, we will review every word and piece of video because sometimes silence is more powerful than words, and is deafening. There are no flashing lights or grand opening numbers, just Yandy sitting there with a tense calm and an overly quiet voice as if she were trying to keep a rage in control, keeping the pot from overheating.